Welcome to TFR Insights, and I'm your host, Swapnil Bhatia. StormForge recently published its 2021 Cloud-Based Survey Report, and to discuss this report, we have with us John Platt, VP of Machine Learning at StormForge. John, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Before we talk about the report, I would love to learn a bit about the company itself. Tell us, what are you guys doing there?
So StormForge is all about optimizing the cloud resources so that you can always make sure you have the right resources at the right time for each of your applications, meaning that you always have good performance, but at a reasonable cost.
If I'm not wrong, your focus is more on reducing cloud waste.
Exactly. And that's where the cost angle comes into it. With the move to the public cloud, cloud waste is out of control, and it has a major impact on enterprises, lower profitability, reduced competitiveness, and also carries reputational risk for IT organizations inside sort of large enterprises, making them seem wasteful, inefficient.
In general, it may seem like, hey, because it's so easy to just put your credit card in there and get resources quickly, so that you don't even know that you're paying for it. Is that the factor, or there are other factors that contribute to cloud waste?
That's definitely a factor, especially as sort of purchasing compute and cloud resources moves from centralized financing departments, and now individual developers can spin up resources at a single click. But the two big drivers of cloud waste, it's typically complexity and over-provisioning. The cloud is an extremely dynamic, complex environment, which makes it very hard to get right. And when working with applications, often you don't know exactly what resources they need. So you end up being caught between providing too few, in which case you're going to hurt customer experience, or you're going to provision too many, and then you'll blow budgets, but the customer will be happy. And when caught between these two options, everyone picks the customer, which is how you end up with widespread over-provisioning. With Kubernetes, this gets worse because it's more dynamic, it's more complex. You're provisioning resources at a much more granular level, and you're sharing resources between lots of containers running on a node. So it's the usual problem of over-provisioning and complexity in the cloud, just 10x harder.
You did allude to that. You touched upon a lot of those things, that what does it mean of this cloud base, because of course you are not that efficient with your resources, especially financial resources. But what are the other even more significant impact of cloud waste for the enterprise customers? Also, let's just quickly think about those cloud vendors also. Of course, they're hyper cloud providers, so they don't care about how many dedicated resources. It can be a case in the VPS environment where every node matters. But from enterprises' perspective, what is the impact of cloud waste?
So the impact is seen on the bottom line. If you're spending 50% of cloud spend is wasted, which means people are spending twice what they need to spend. So this impacts profitability, it impacts competitiveness, and it impacts the business as a whole, because you're wasting money on cloud resources, which you could be using to hire more engineers, more people, shipping more features, more products, etc.
If you look at it in the kind of dollar amount, how much percent of resources companies are wasting just on this cloud waste? That money they could have used in R&D and so many other areas.
So typically these cloud bills can be extremely high, tens of millions per month. You can find the exact details and the breakdown in the survey, which you mentioned at the beginning. So 50% of that, if you're spending millions per month, then and half of it is wasted, you're wasting millions per month.
I also want to understand, sometimes we focus too much on technology, but in most cases, it also becomes people problem, culture problem. So when we do look at cloud waste, just like e-waste, is there any cultural aspect, people aspect to it as well?
100%. So this is a big part of Finops, a new foundation, which is trying, and a new sort of movement, which is trying to focus on spending money effectively in the cloud. It's very much a cultural problem. And it's bringing together people who wouldn't typically talk: engineers, finance, product owners, everyone. So it's very much a cultural thing and about breaking down barriers. And it's not just a technical discussion. It's also sort of, how do you share information? How do you understand who's spending what? And how does that tie to business objectives? And is the return on the investment there?
This may not make much sense in this case, but if you look at the traditional data centers, or if your light is running, your light is running. If you have 100 cores of CPU, 1 GB of RAM, it is there. Whether you use it or not, power is on, power is on. That is not the case in the cloud. So I just want to go back to the cultural aspect as well. But because when we do look at cloud, we are not looking at the legacy workforce who do not understand, or is that problem still there, that people are not even aware that you are paying by use, you're not paying for the whole rack of servers there.
So the on-demand nature of the cloud definitely makes it easy for things to get out of hand quickly, because when you turn it on, you're paying for it, and if you forget to turn it off, you're still paying for it. I think it comes down to sort of two ways of actually reducing resources. It's first realizing that if you use 2 CPUs less tomorrow, then it actually impacts the bottom line immediately because of the on-demand nature of the cloud. And it's about sort of being very careful about assessing where I can actually go in. And it typically falls into two camps. There's either things that people have started and forgotten about, and there's just orphaned workloads. And then the second one is there's important workloads which are just over-provisioned. People don't know exactly how many resources they need, so they gave them too many.
We talked about the problem aspect of cloud-based. Let's look at the solution side of it. Number one, I want to understand from you is that, do you see any trend, any patterns where people are getting aware of it and they are making, even if, small steps towards reducing cloud-based, or you feel that a lot of awareness is needed?
So there's definitely people making progress on this front. And one thing we think is a really natural solution here is machine learning. So one of the reasons, even when people know that they're over-provisioned, one of the reasons that they don't fix the problem is because it takes too much time to go around and have engineers manually right-size applications. With machine learning, you can watch a lot of the monitoring data coming out of these cloud platforms, and you can actually automatically right-size. So people get all of the benefits without having to waste a lot of engineering time. And then a lot of small wins add up to a lot of big savings.
Earlier, you mentioned Finops Foundation. Can you also talk about what is the role that Finops Foundation is playing in this space, and how involved are you or StormForge with that?
Yeah, so the Finops Foundation is a new movement trying to encourage people to start thinking about how they're spending money in the cloud, rather than it being just people spin them up and then never go back and check, was it a worthwhile investment? Actually encouraging people to regularly understand what they're spending, see if that makes sense, see where they can save money, and just making it part of continuously sort of optimizing costs, rather than just waiting and getting a huge bill at the end of the month, the quarter, the year.
Before we wrap this up, this is, I think, very, very timely question, is that because of this pandemic, a lot of users are rushing towards cloud. Digital transformation has been accelerated, which I'm pretty sure will also lead to more cloud-based. So do you see any spike in cloud-based in coming time, or do you think that these users are already well aware, a lot of education is going on there, StormForge is coming out with a report that will help them? What kind of trends do you see in future?
So the trends I see are the following. So first of all, the drivers of cloud waste aren't going away. These cloud platforms will always be complex. They'll always be hard to run on. And the on-demand nature will always mean it's easy to spend a lot of money very quickly. With the move towards the cloud, public cloud is only growing. It means cloud waste will also only grow. 75% of people realize that this is a major problem in their enterprise, and everyone expects their cloud spend to grow. So with the sort of core drivers staying the same and the sort of industry trends moving towards the public cloud, this is a big problem which will only get bigger.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for taking time out today and talk about this report, and also kind of deep dive into the very serious problem of cloud waste and the solutions that are there. I love this conversation, and I would love to have you back on the show once again. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'd love to come back.